Sinister Delusions. Yo, what's going on? It's someone that's no one, and welcome back to today's report. Today's report was sent in by Kenny. When this happened, 2019. The drugs used, scopolamine, dimenhydrinate, and caffeine, at a dose of 2 milligrams of scopolamine, 500 milligrams of dimenhydrinate, and 200 milligrams of caffeine. The route of administration, orally. Gender, male. Height, 5'10". Age, 18 at the time. Weight, 58 kilograms. Prior experience includes weed, alcohol, DXM, codeine, LSD, mushrooms, oxycodone, Xanax, Vyvanse, DMT, nitrous, and MDMA. His set was depressed and emotionally empty, but very curious. And the setting, at home during the night while parents were sleeping. Okay, so a pretty unique list of substances here. But the thing is, they all come from one over-the-counter called Travacalm Original. Now this brand doesn't seem to be as available and vast as, say, something like Benadryl, but it's an over-the-counter regardless that is accessible. Dimenhydrinate is commonly found in Dramamine. Scopolamine, though, is one of the active tropane alkaloids found in nightshade plants like the Tora, and caffeine I imagine is in there to combat the sedation. To say the least, this is quite the damn mix, especially dangerous if used for recreational intents. But Kenny did choose this as his only option and dove in. Considering his prior experience, you may think he might just be able to handle such a mix, but nah, not really. You'll see what I mean. This is a classic deliriant story, could have turned out way worse than it did. I'm sure you'll enjoy it, so without further ado, let's dive right into it. Alright, so I'll start by saying that the brand of medication I used for this experience, Travacalm Original, should be avoided at all costs. Not only is dimenhydrinate composed 50% of a caffeine-like stimulant, each pill also contains 20 milligrams of caffeine each, meaning when taking recreational doses, there is a very large quantity of stimulants factored in with the DPH and scopolamine. This can lead to a lot of added anxiety to the experience, as if there wasn't enough already, and heart problems. I had prepared myself for a 500 milligram dimenhydrinate experience after researching online about the substance and reading up on several reports, but I did not take into consideration the hyoscine, or scopolamine, 2 milligrams, that would come with taking 10 tablets. I found little information about scopolamine doses online, but I can assume that it potentiated the experience looking back, especially the negative physical effects such as inability to talk, walking difficulties, and blurred vision. It seems this was the only available over-the-counter medication in Australia with DPH, as I cannot find any others with just pure DPH such as Benadryl. Anyways, on with the report. I never thought that I'd be writing a trip report, but after my awful first, and hopefully last, delirium experience that happened a few nights back, I felt like I needed to submit this report. There were many things that I did wrong in this experience, which ultimately led to me being caught by my parents and almost being sent to the hospital. I have read many reports on DPH, enough to understand that having a positive experience with this substance is almost impossible. But deliriants have always fascinated me more than any other drug category. The fact that they can cause true hallucinations, which are just as convincing as reality, is interesting enough, but many people report the same hallucinations. Phantom cigarettes, spiders, shadow people, the Hat Man, etc., which convinces me that there is something more profound at play, even if it is dark and very sinister. I figured that I would try DPH just once to know what it was like. This was my first mistake. After looking at over-the-counter products at the local chemist, I could only find Travacalm with DMH, which is 50% DPH. I was reasonably smart with my dose. I figured I would take an equivalent of 250 milligrams DPH, a good dose for a first time considering I've taken LSD doses up to 300 micrograms and have never had a bad trip. My setting for this experience was terrible. I took the 10 pills at 9 p.m. right after saying goodnight to my parents and closing my bedroom. The reason I thought this would be okay is I've done the same thing on an acid trip and a few DXM trips, and I've never had any issues. My state of mind was always fine throughout. I knew that deliriants were a lot harder to handle than psychedelics, but I was only taking 250 milligrams of DPH, so I knew I would be reasonably connected to reality while still experiencing a couple hallucinations, and maybe some music enhancement. At the time, I thought the 2 milligrams of scopolamine wouldn't have too much impact on the trip, as it wasn't a big dose, which was stupid of me considering it's one of the main substances in the Torah and probably synergized with the DPH. After only 30 minutes, I felt a tingly sensation in my feet and a general dullness that fell on my mind. My thinking was starting to slow, and I felt some minor relaxation that swept my body. As I continued to come up, everything felt vague, as if I was living in a vivid lucid dream. My vision became overlaid with grainy static like that on a TV. Looking at my ceiling and walls, I saw translucent, shadowy shapes and patterns drift along the surfaces. Unlike the geometry I seen on psychedelics, these patterns seem random and abstract. Looking at my arm, I noticed the same thing, only now I begin to see the outlines of faces form on my skin and then fade away shortly after. I decided to go on Reddit and read up a bit more on the drug before I start to peak. After only 5 minutes or so of reading, my vision starts to get blurry fast. My guess is the scopolamine potentiated my blurred vision because I had no idea the extent to which my vision would be impaired. I could no longer read any text, even if I zoomed in. This was when my experience started to plummet into utter discomfort and borderline insanity. I noticed that I needed to pee, bad. The thing about my house is that my parents' room is very close to mine, with the bathroom in between both rooms. Usually there isn't an issue when I go to pee on DXM or LSD, as my mind is always in a positive place, and I can still walk properly. If my parents ask if I'm alright, I'd be able to respond with something like, "Yeah, I'm fine," and continue back to bed. However, the moment I stood up, I knew this was going to be an issue. The body load I was experiencing was insane, so much greater than I expected. When I was able to heave my leg in front of me to take a stride, my balance and coordination were beyond fucked, causing me to crash into my bedroom door. At this point, my mind is jumbled and my thinking was impaired, yet still clear enough that if I ran into my dad on the way to the bathroom, there wouldn't be an issue, or so I thought. After stumbling to the bathroom, I missed the toilet when I went to sit down and almost fell on the floor. This puzzled me. I could have sworn I was facing the right way. After I pee, I head back to my room, trying my hardest to walk straight, and I made it without running into my parents. At this point, it was probably just over an hour since I dosed, and I'm regretting my decision. I couldn't figure out exactly why, but I felt incredibly uneasy and nervous, so I turned out my light. I figured that with my light out, if I saw a disturbing hallucination, like a massive spider, I could just close my eyes and put my headphones on. As soon as I turned out the light, I was majorly disoriented. Where am I? I thought to myself. I knew I was in my room, but at the same time, I had forgotten the layout of my room and ended up walking to the complete wrong side of my room looking for my bed. I grabbed my phone and put the flashlight on to find my bed. Once in bed, I saw the patterns and lines on my blanket turn into worms and bugs, but only for a second. Once I inspected them closer, the visual stopped. This didn't disturb me too much because I knew I was hallucinating. However, this overwhelming feeling of dysphoria persisted. I could barely lift my arm to reach for my headphones, and my body just felt gross. It was then when I got into a loop of trying to put in my left earbud, only for my mind to drift to another thought and forget completely what my task was, only then for me to realize what I wanted to do a minute later and for the process to repeat. This happened 5 or 6 times before I was able to put my earbud in, which was a lot more difficult than it should have been. I put on some ambient music and I get some decent music euphoria, which relaxes my mind a little bit. With music in, I felt more disconnected from my room as I couldn't hear what was going on around me. This worried me because it made the possibility of having a disturbing visual be more pronounced. I closed my eyes and focused on the music only to open them periodically to inspect my room, getting scared and closing them again. Getting into loops like this happened throughout the night due to my short-term memory going to utter shit. I've gotten onto loops on LSD before, but these loops made me feel helpless, mainly because whatever I was trying to do became incredibly difficult due to the physical limitations, meaning it may take 10 minutes to pick up a bottle of water or to pull up the sheets, etc. I really don't understand why people take this substance for music enhancement. I find that MDMA, LSD, DXM, and even Vyvanse make music infinitely better than it sounds on DPH. This is probably since the clusterfuck of negative effects outweigh that one single positive. I completely lose track of time and find that I need to pee again. I repeat the process of going to the bathroom, only this time my dad confronts me on my way back to my room. He must have heard me running into walls and got up to check on me. The main thing that completely caught me off guard with this drug was my inability to talk properly, which is what led to me getting busted. Every time I talked, my words were slurred really badly, as if I had 20 shots of vodka, and I wasn't making much sense. I would often forget what I was just asked, just seconds after it being asked. My memory is a little sketchy, but I'll try and recall the conversation. Dad: Hey, are you alright? Me: Yeah, I'm just peeing quite a lot. I had too much tea before bed maybe. I'm just gonna go to sleep now. Dad: You're obviously really drunk. How many drinks did you have? Me: Yeah. I had like a few drinks. Dad: You're off your face. How many did you have? You need to tell me. Me: 2 shots. Dad: You did not have 2 shots. You're swaying on your feet and your words are slurred. You must be on something harder. Are you on acid? You need to tell me. I know this isn't just alcohol. We went back and forth like that for a couple of minutes. I insisted I was only drunk, but I kept saying I only took 2 shots for some reason. If I was in a better state of mind, I would have just said I downed a bottle of vodka or something, but I wasn't even thinking straight. Eventually, I knew I had to fess up. My mom was up now and interrogating me too. I decided to come clean. I told them, yes, okay, just come into my room and I'll show you. I take my parents into my room, intending on showing them the empty box of Travacalm, but not only 10 seconds later, when I sit down on my bed with my parents in my room, I completely forget why I took them into my room. I just sit there on my bed, staring off into space for a good 20 seconds or so. During this time, I hallucinate my dad wasn't in the room and it was just my mom. But she wasn't my mom, she was my cousin. This seemed completely normal to me at the time, even though it made no sense whatsoever. I completely snap out of it when my dad shakes me and asks me again what I took. I reach into my drawer and show them the box. They freak out and call Poison Helpline to see whether or not I had to go to the hospital. During this whole process, I'm nowhere near as shaken up as I should have been. It's like I was numb to the emotions I normally get during a situation like this. There was just this constant unease and discomfort that had been present the whole trip. Nothing had changed. I wasn't full-blown delirious, so I managed to avoid getting sent to the hospital. My parents were really shaken up about the whole thing, understandably so, but they leave me and go to bed. I turn my light out and immediately see my phone, face up on my bed, display on, and illuminating half of the room. Standing next to my bed, I reached down to pick it up, only to realize my phone wasn't on my bed, it was on the floor. I had hallucinated my bed, as I was on the complete opposite side of my room. On top of this, I saw my bedroom door where one of my windows should have been. Everything was completely out of whack. Turns out my phone wasn't even there. It was on my bedside table where I had left it. On my desk, I see a giant centipede slowly crawling, which turned out to be a sock, and a giant spider, which was actually on my keyboard. Even though these sights were disturbing, I was strangely numb to the fear, partially because I knew I was just seeing things. I began hearing family members and friends calling for me. Most of it sounded distant, as if it was coming from outside. A lot of it was random and didn't make any sense, like a friend saying, "Hey, I broke my leg. You need to mow the lawn before someone gets hurt. Quick, the sun's almost down." All of the auditory hallucinations had a sense of urgency, and all of them wanted me to leave my room and do something. I knew better though. It felt like a sinister entity was deceiving me. I lie in bed just wanting to go to sleep when I have the most profound hallucination of my trip, one that I did not expect to have on this low of a dose. I see my friend from school sitting legs crossed in the middle of my room. He's got my phone on the ground facing up with a password lock screen. I watch for at least a minute as he retries random passwords to hack into my phone. Eventually he gets in, even though the password he entered wasn't even mine. I say, "Hey dude, that's my phone. Can you chuck it here?" He looks at me and laughs. "Oh shit, my bad. Here you go, man." He extends his arm to me, offering the phone. I reach, but my hand goes right through it. Then he vanishes. Damn, where'd he go? I thought. During the whole time, I thought nothing of him being there. It seemed completely normal to me. It wasn't until the day after I thought back and realized I hallucinated the entire thing. After that, I fall asleep relatively easy and woke up feeling mentally drained despite having slept for 9 hours. Looking at my ceiling, I was still seeing vague patterns, but I was glad to know the trip was pretty much over. All in all, I'm glad that I experienced the deliriant, despite being caught, because I found it very interesting. Like every single other person who's made a report on a deliriant, I strongly advise no one ever touch this stuff, but if you are anyway, make sure that you stay away from Travacalm, because the concoction of drugs in their pills is complete and utter fuckery, and I haven't got half a fucking clue why this shit's over the counter, like physically harmless drugs like LSD will land you in jail. Not only do they have DMH, but scopolamine and caffeine too? Jesus.